Hello there, my name is Jasom Jensai, and welcome to stream number 5. This episode is going to be a lot different than my other ones. In my previous ones, I've done like a live review of a Mandalorian episode, but honestly, that was kind of boring to watch, but also boring to record. I love watching The Mandalorian, but there's just not as much as I thought there would be to say about it. So I'm going to be changing it. If you've seen the thumbnail, it looks quite a bit different. Basically, I'm going to do a review. So instead of like a reaction, I'll be just saying my thoughts about some Star Wars content. Going through Mandalorian, of course, because Season 2 is coming out soon. Super exciting. I'll also be doing like what's my favorite Star Wars movie, like what are the best ones. I'll probably rank them, although, yeah, I'll probably rank them. Then I'll go through what I think Maul's plan was for the siege of Mandalore. Because it's a little confusing. Like, a lot of people are like, well, how would he be able to beat Anakin and Obi-Wan? Why would he think he could even do that? It's a bit ambitious. But yeah, to start, just gonna say hello. Let's see. Yeah, so if you got something to add, if you want to say anything, if you got a question that you want me to cover during the stream, just say it in the chat. And if you're watching the rebroadcast, just say it in the comments. I'll comment back on that too. And I might even address that comment live if you do. If you want me to, I'll for sure do it. Like, obviously, if it's something stupid and not Star Wars related. But pretty much everything I'll cover at least a little bit. So let's get into Mandalorian Episode 5. So it's a fun episode. It's probably my second least favorite. Because nothing really happens in here that it's kind of filler. But that's not necessarily bad. It doesn't make it a bad episode or not entertaining. It just doesn't connect with the rest of the plot as much. So starts out with a space fight with the guy, like the bounty hunter and the starfighter, and Mandalorian. So Mando, the Razor Crest, isn't a fighter. It's almost like a transport. It's too big to be a fighter. But Mando is still able to beat him because it's a tougher ship. I don't know. I'm not a very good tactician or fighter, I guess, when it comes to space combat. But yeah, it's a pretty good fight. I would have preferred if there was more debris. That way it's more interesting than just two little starfighters trying to point their cannons at each other. Like if they went into an asteroid belt, or the rings around a planet, or if there was more, but obviously that wouldn't work with the story. Or if they went in atmosphere and went through canyons. But it's a good fight for what it is. Oh, I like how that's my line, when the bounty hunter said, I can take you in warm or I can take you in cold. That's a good line. I still remember that from one of my favorite parts of that episode from when I first saw it. I was like, oh, that's so cool. But yeah, so that pretty good. A lot of people criticize it for going to Tatooine again, which I don't mind at all. Like, it's not that it just doesn't not make sense for them to go to Tatooine. Like, they're not shoehorning in the fan service. Like, I get that people don't want fan service, but if fan service makes sense, like, it's fine. And I guess maybe they wanted a new and different planet, but like, what other planet could there be? Like, they keep giving us new planets, and they're all desert planets. So, going to Tatooine is fine, in my opinion. And, I did say it might be filler, or that this episode seems to be filler, but it might connect with season 2 if they have the Boba Fett thing. And that's it. That could be a connection. And then Tatooine wouldn't just be fan service, it would be required to connect to Boba Fett. Or at least, I mean, I guess you could have Boba Fett appear somewhere else. But it'd be required to explain why Boba Fett survived. To have Tatooine be a thing. Yeah, so he shows up on Tatooine, and there's that lady with who basically does the repairs. I mean, she's kind of annoying, but like I think she's supposed to be. I don't know how wealthy is Mando. Tell me in the chat what you think. Cause he tells Queel after episode 2, he is like, I could use someone of your talents. I could pay handsomely. But then in this episode, he's like, well, I can barely pay for repairs on my ship. So, and like, he's the best bounty hunter in the sector. Best bounty hunter in this sector. And he's also, and this is, they don't give a name for him. The Imperial guy that he works with, who tells him to go get Baby Yoda. He says he's also very expensive, so he should be wealthy. But then he just doesn't. Maybe he just doesn't spend, and he tries to seem poor. That way, people don't expect a lot from him. I don't know. Or maybe it's just that he gets paid in Beskar, which, I mean, he is paid in Beskar. If you got that money, that amount of goods and credits, he'd probably be extremely wealthy. But he gets Beskar instead because he's a Mandalorian. Yeah, so they go to the same bar that, like the Mos Eisley Cantina. They go to that place, and it's a lot cleaner. I think that's interesting. I don't know. I don't know how that connects to the New Republic taking over. I would think it would just, I mean, Tatooine seems kind of like it would just exist outside of government. Like, I don't know what I'm saying. Well, I know what I'm saying. I don't know how to explain it. It seems that it wouldn't be affected very much by whatever the government is at the time. So with the New Republic taking over and it's all chaotic and stuff, Tatooine's like, oh, we're just normal. So then it's just because I guess the droid took over, the droid's more organized. Because that's the thing, there's a lot of droids in the Mos Eisley Cantina now. But at the cantina, Mando meets, I forget his name, the bounty hunter. I'm just gonna call him the bounty hunter. You guys know who I'm talking about. He's the kid who's like trying to get into the guild. He's trying to get into the guild, but like this is the first job, and it's basically like without Mando's help, he would be so dead. Fenric Sean or whatever. I don't remember their names. The sniper would have just killed him so easily. Which brings me to my next part, which is basically what are the tactics used and what I think of those. So they're dealing with a sniper. They're not snipers, so they're going to have to close the distance really fast. I mean, they could have gone for armor, like if they got a tank, but that'd probably be really expensive. So I think, yeah, speed is their best bet. Mando gets the speeder bike, or Mando suggests the speeder bikes. Basically, he calls the shots. He gets the speeder bikes. But yeah, so they get the speeder bikes. They get the flash grenades. Oh, the Tusken Raider scene. The Tusken Raiders used the same exact tactics as they did in episode 4 against Luke, except they didn't attack right away. And I also like how Mando brings up that everyone thinks of the Tusken Raiders as barbarians. But really the Tusken Raiders see themselves as like the natives. They're the people that live there, and everyone else is just taking their land. So I think that's a good point that Mando brought up. And also he's helping to teach the bounty hunter to have more of a respectful attitude. He's not like disciplining him or anything, but he's like just saying, well, from their point of view, they're not in the wrong. And you need to be mindful of that. Like, what is their point of view? So yeah, they go on their speeders. They see the sniper, or they find out where the sniper is. Which, by the way, when they see the bantha with the dead person on it, that's a really good scene because it shows how deadly the sniper is. And then, of course, you see Mando running away, getting hit in the Beskar twice in that short time from that distance. Because they show you the ridge, it's like a mile away. Like, it is very far away. And yet, that bounty hunter died that far away. Probably even farther, to be honest. So yeah, they wait till night. That's a good plan. They go on their speeder bikes. Again, speed is probably the only way they're gonna make it there before they get killed. And they have those flash grenades, which, of course, that's a great plan. Distractions. I'm not sure they could have done anything else. Maybe if they took the Razor Crest, that might have worked, but that was getting repaired. I suppose the bounty hunters should have a ship, but who knows? So, yeah, that's their best tactics. The fight scene between Fennec Shan and the bounty hunter was super good. Like, I mean, it's not crazy. There's not like lightsabers and force powers, but for what it was very, very well done. And then, of course, the bounty hunter lost because he's a newbie, but Mando showed up right on time with a blaster. So, yeah, they capture Fennec Shan, and then the bounty hunter gets... Well, first, Mando suggests that the bounty hunter goes and gets the bantha, but of course, the bounty hunter doesn't trust Mando, so Mando decides to go get the bantha instead. Which, of course, was a mistake, but I guess Mando's trying to show... He's trying to teach the bounty hunter a bit. Like, you can tell he's showing the bounty hunter a bit of how you should act. Not just how to be a really good bounty hunter, but how to be a good person. But what do you guys think? If you're watching afterwards, say something in the comments. If you're watching now, say something in the chat. I hate I say it so much though. Okay, so Mando, of course, returns to find Fennec Shan dead, which, by the way, that was probably a mistake. Because, the bounty hunter. Yeah, the bounty hunter, was like, he was overconfident. He should not have thought he could beat Mando. I mean, he did have a good plan. So he shows up, he's like, oh, I got this Baby Yoda. Mando's not going to harm me when I'm holding it. But, of course, Mando has a better plan using those flash grenades that they set up earlier. And he, of course, easily beats the bounty hunter. So, it's a good episode. Not as good as the other, 1, 2, 3, and 7 and 8. And I would put 6 there too, but for completely different reasons. Those episodes are better, but I mean, it's still a good episode. It's got a decent ending. I mean, Mando is just taking out people honorably and very awesomely. He's just super cool. So, yeah, the second worst episode in The Mandalorian, still really, really good. Um, yeah, entertaining, great characters, all around a good episode. All right, let's move on to the next thing that I have today, and that is ranking the Star Wars movies. So, as I said, this live stream is going to be quite a bit different from my other ones. The review, let me see if I can figure out how long that took. Okay. It took like 15 minutes or something, I think. I might be reading it wrong. But my other ones had taken like 40 minutes. So, and I figured this would happen. I'm like, if I just do a review, it's going to be a lot shorter. So I decided I'd have a couple more topics added in addition to the Mandalorian review. So one of these was ranking the Star Wars movies. I mean, that's a pretty common thing. Ranking is favorites, opinions. That's kind of this segment. I don't have names for the segments yet, but there's like the review, the like, what's your favorite, opinions, that type of thing. And then the, let's try and logically figure this out one. Like, what is this? Like, what would happen if, or what was he thinking? That kind of question. And this is like that opinion-based one. Like, what is your favorite? And of course, like most of these questions, at least for me, when it comes to Star Wars, my favorite changes very quickly. I could say my favorite Star Wars movie right now it's Revenge of the Sith. Episode 3 is usually one of the better episodes for me. But a lot of times I say episode 5 is the best or episode 6 is the best. And I mean those two are great, but right now I'm going to say episode 3 is the best. It's the problem with 5 and 6 is they're kind of simple. I don't know if I can say that. I'll probably have to address them individually. So the problem with episode 5, episode 5, it's not my favorite, but it is really good. Like it's all around good. It doesn't have many mistakes. Like it's got that Yoda scene, all those Yoda training Luke, where you learn so much about the Force. You got Han Solo and Leia, which is, I guess it's cool. There's Cloud City, that duel with Vader and Luke. Very good. Probably one of the best duels ever. Definitely the best in the originals. Then you have the Battle of Hoth. Like, it's a good battle. But Revenge of the Sith, it does have its bad moments. Like that moment in Anakin and Obi-Wan. You know what? Revenge of the Sith is a lot like Anakin versus Obi-Wan. It's really awesome. There's so many cool moments. But then there's some parts where you're like, why did they leave that in? Like, the part that I always think of is that part where Anakin and Obi-Wan are swinging their lightsabers around and they're not touching each other for like a full second. Why would they do that? How does that get left in? But I mean, other than that, and maybe the chain, like they're swinging on chains and going back and forth, that entire fight scene is easily the best. Of course, other than those two moments, which bring it down a bunch. So I would still say it's my favorite. But, which could be another question. What's your favorite lightsaber duel? Or ranking the lightsaber duels. So episode 3 is the best because seeing Anakin's fall is very emotional. Seeing the end of the Jedi is very emotional. Just the contrast between seeing that awesome, like, burst part where they're flying through in their Jedi starfighters, and they've got buzz droids and missiles, the one crawling with vulture droids, and they barely crash land into there, and seeing Anakin and Obi-Wan talking to each other like brothers. Like the they are as close as possible, closer than we've ever seen them. And then you get to the end of the movie, and they're fighting each other, and Anakin is going all out, and Obi-Wan is just he has to fight him. Like there's nothing he can do. And then you get to the high ground scene, and Obi-Wan is forced to cut Anakin into four parts. Like he's forced to basically kill Anakin. It's like he's his brother. That's why it's one of the better movies. The best movie, at least right now. But then of course you've also got episode 6, which is probably my third right now, which Tatooine, that was okay, but then you get to the Battle of Endor, and that battle is so grand. Like it's the final battle. It's like the final battle of the. Technically, the Battle of the Jakku comes after that, but it's the time where the rebellion finally conquers the Emperor. You got the land battle where the Ewoks save the day. Those scary, tasty Ewoks. Taking out stormtroopers, I guess. But then you've also got the space battle with, honestly, I don't know how they did it without CGI. All those TIE fighters, all those X-Wings and A-Wings and B-Wings, Y-Wings, all those ships, the Death Star, and then of course you have Luke and Vader and the Emperor, and seeing Anakin turn back to the light, taking his mask off, and then the Force Ghost at the end. You get to see that. It's just the final, 7, 8, and 9. But for the story of Anakin, it is the final chapter. Then there's episode 5, my second favorite right now. I've already covered that a bunch. It doesn't have any bad moment. Like, there might be some scenes I would say I don't like that much, but for the most part, it's just all around very, very good. There's like no parts where you're like, well, that shouldn't be in there. Like the I know, like I love you, I know, that scene, that's good. As I mentioned before, Vader versus Luke. Vader is so intimidating. The I'm your father, that was spoiled for me before I was old enough to know what a spoiler was, so I guess. But it's still a great moment. Luke choosing to fall instead of joining his father. Yoda, yes. Luke getting trained by Yoda. That's probably my favorite part of The Empire Strikes Back. I love Yoda. He's one of my favorite characters. Just hearing him describe the Force and teach Luke is very... Not only is it... Because I love theorizing about how the Force works. Not only is it very good for that, but also it's just cool to see how much Yoda has learned over his years and how much Luke still has yet to learn. What else do I like about Empire Strikes Back? Yeah, Battle of Hoth, chasing the Millennium Falcon through the asteroid belt and stuff. All that is good. When Han Solo flies at the Star Destroyer and then shuts everything off and clips onto the back and then escapes with the garbage, that's a very clever move. That is very smart. I wouldn't have thought of that. Good job, George Lucas. Episode 5, third best. Let's see, what else is there? Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Rogue One next. It's a bit confusing, and a lot of the characters aren't that interesting. Like the pilot, he's kind of not that interesting, but it's very well done, and you can tell it's been made what is it, almost 40 years after the originals. Like, it is, like, the story is ultimately the most important part of a movie. Like, if you don't have a good story, your graphics aren't going to save you. But its graphics did help out a lot. Especially with what they were able to do with the battle over Scarif. Um, it just looked so crisp, so real. They have the shield. They got a lot of Easter eggs in there. You have Chopper and Hera, um, Red 5 dying. They have U-Wings and Death Troopers. You get to see a lot of planets. Jeddah. You get to see Shirt Imwe and K2SO. The jokes in that movie are so good. K2SO is like, he's just very funny. I don't know what to say about him. I just like to laugh at him. And then, of course, Shirt is also pretty funny and also awesome. Like, a blind guy who has just enough force to be able to use the force to see. So cool. Baze is pretty cool. I don't know. His character development wasn't that good. He kind of had one moment of character development. And that's, of course, when he is like, I'm one of the Force, and the Force is with me, and starts taking up Death Troopers. But, yeah, good movie. Very well done. Next up, for number 5, so I'm thinking 4. What about the sequels? I'm gonna go with 4 next. It's yeah. Episode 4 is the movie that started it all off. Like, it is the best. No, it's not the best. It's, how do you describe it? It's like it's the best one to show someone if they haven't seen Star Wars. Like, The Phantom Menace is episode 1, but I would almost say it'd be better to start with 4 than episode 1, because it kind of introduces you better and makes it feel more, I don't know, real. It's more realistic. Like, as cool as the CGI was in episode 1, it's like the first time they're using CGI for much. I mean, I don't know if it is the first, but it's at least one of the first times they're using CGI. It's in its early stages, and there's some scenes that don't look that good. Like, especially the grass plains of Naboo looks a little bit weird. Like, Jar Jar looks great. So real. Like, I don't know. Like, it looks more real than if you made a costume. But there's just some, like, scenes where you're like, oh, that's fake. And it takes you out of the movie. But episode 4, I mean, they didn't have, they couldn't add as much stuff because they didn't have CGI. But the stuff that they did have was really good. Like, if they tried to do Coruscant at that time, no way. But if they did Tatooine, that they can get away with. So, episode 4, really good. You got the sunset scene, where Luke's, like, thinking about the future. You got, obviously, I mean, there's the lightsaber duels. Like, I've heard people try and defend that, and it's like, oh, it's not about that. It's 2 master swordsmen, and they're so good. But, like, let's be honest, that fight scene is not very good. But I mean, other than that, that's probably the biggest problem I have with it, is the lightsaber duels. But it's a great movie. It sets up the Empire right away. These are the bad guys. They're powerful. They're hunting down this rebellion. Princess Leia, of course, isn't just a damsel in distress. She's fearless. She's a warrior. Luke as well. Kind of just a farm boy, but he's willing to be a rebel. He's willing to fight the Empire for a good cause. He learns from Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan's just very wise. Yeah, just good movie all around. Number 6. Yeah, episode 4 is 5 slot. 6 goes to what's left. Solo, Attack the Clones, The Phantom Menace, all the sequels. Oh, what goes next? I'm gonna say The Last Jedi. A lot of people don't really like The Last Jedi. They think it ruined Luke. They think it ruined Snoke. There's Leia Poppins. There's Holdo. And then of course there's other people who are like, oh, they made Luke so cool. Snoke definitely needed to die. All these plot twists, all these subverting expectations, they're so good. But to me, Last Jedi is kind of... Sure, it's not just mediocre, but the highs and the lows, they kind of cancel out. At least that's how I think of it. So you got like Poe's arc, which is like... okay, if Poe had not taken out the Dreadnought in the beginning of the movie, the Resistance, or the Rebellion, I guess, because they stopped calling it the Resistance, the Rebellion would be gone. Like, the Dreadnought would have just shot the Raddus. Kaboom. Game over. If Holdo had just told everyone the plan, like, that would have solved it. Or if Poe had gone to Holdo with the plan and said, hey, this is what we need to do, because what's the alternative? That would have solved it also. Poe Dameron's arc just doesn't make that much sense. And then when he calls off the attack from the, on the, what did you call it? The battering ram cannon. The battering ram cannon. That, according to the knowledge he had, that was the death of the Resistance. They had no way to escape. The only thing protecting them was that door, which got blown up, because he called off the attack. I mean, sure, there was a very low chance of them succeeding, but they had worse chances they had worse chances of surviving if they hadn't blown up the cannon than the chances of them succeeding and blowing up the cannon. Only, unless Poe somehow knew that Luke was going to take on the entire First Order and distract them, and that there was a way out, his decision makes no sense. That being said, Rey and Kylo, the sequel acting, especially Rey and Kylo, not just especially Rey and Kylo, the sequel acting, pretty much all around, yeah, maybe Rose, but I mean, even that's pretty good, is so good. I don't know. I'm not an actor. I'm not very good at telling what's good and what's not. But just based on how I feel when I watch those actors, they can make things look believable that would otherwise be just ridiculous. And it's because of their expressions. They're really good actors. Yeah, and even Mark Hamill said that, if I remember correctly. Again, I'm not that big into the acting side of Star Wars. I'm more about the story. But it's really good. And Rey and Kylo's scenes, it doesn't make that much sense for Rey to form a relationship with Kylo, but at the same time, who else is she gonna turn to? I guess Chewie, but they kind of just made Chewie like a taxi driver in the sequels, so that can't work. Luke was not what she hoped it was, and Kylo was right there. Um, so yeah, that kind of makes sense. I do wish Rey had more more physical training. Because, I mean, Luke did teach her a little bit, and I mean, he kind of taught her the wrong lessons, but she can't lift that many boulders. Like at the very end when she rescues the Resistance, she can't lift that many boulders without any physical force training. Like, without practicing force push, without doing the handstands and lifting R2, without lifting the X-Wing and learning that size matters not. There's no way she can lift that. But I don't know. And then so that entire storyline is kind of mediocre. One more thing with that is the Praetorian Guard fight. A lot of people really like that fight, and I don't get it. Why? What is cool about it? Is it just that Rey and Kylo are teaming up? Okay, the Praetorian Guards, they're not fighting. They're spinning. Like, watch that fight and pay attention to the choreography. It is ridiculous. People have mentioned the Vanishing Dagger. Like, that, how does that even happen? They all attack one at a time. Well, I suppose they attack Kylo pretty well. But they attack at least Rey one at a time. They twirl around way too much. They telegraph like crazy, which is basically where you, like, swing your arm back so far and, like, that way your opponent knows exactly what's going to happen and can counter it easily. Like, it's not good. And then, of course, instead of Kylo saving Rey, Rey saves Kylo, proving again that Rey is more powerful than Kylo. Why do they keep doing this? I mean, maybe if Rey had some training and was revealed that she went to the dark side and Kylo went to the light, then it would be good. But Kylo is the villain. You want him to be seen as the most powerful. And he has more training. It makes sense for him to be more powerful. So I don't know what they were thinking with that fight. I don't even know. It's just a mess. So that storyline, kind of mediocre. But then Canto Bight, a lot of people really hate that. I don't know why. Like, it's not that good. But I mean, it's kind of weird that they save the animals, but not the slaves. Like, you would think that they would prioritize humans over Fabiers. But I guess Fabiers are cool. I don't know. But that, like, oh, DJ showing up, that's such a convenience. They got so lucky. And of course, they trusted him, which they shouldn't have, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of just accidentally convincing myself that The Last Jedi is worse than it is. But that's why it's not in first place. It's in, what was it? 5th place? No, 6th place. 6 out of 11. Yeah. It's still Star Wars. It's still a great movie. There's a lot of good moments in it. Like, Luke teaching Rey is after just The Last Jedi, I did not like Luke's portrayal in The Last Jedi. But after that, in The Rise of Skywalker, that scene where he catches the lightsaber, my first thought was, oh, that's jab at Ryan for what he did to Luke in The Last Jedi. But then, as Luke started to explain that he was wrong, I got it. Luke isn't perfect in The Last Jedi. Like, that isn't the point. The point is that Luke was wrong. It's a character arc. Even though he probably didn't need one. But, I don't know. I get it. I get what Ryan was going for. And that makes me appreciate it more. And also, there's a lot of just funny moments with Luke and Chewie too. The Porgs, of course, that's what I'm thinking of with Chewie. Then R2D2 having Leia, replaying the Leia message, like, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope, to Luke, and Luke's like, that's a cheap one. That's a pretty good moment. And of course, my favorite one that I'm remembering right now, Rey feeling the Force, but it's not actually the Force, it's like a little leaf thing. That was pretty funny. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on The Last Jedi. I'm gonna write this down. So 1 is Revenge of the Sith. 2 is, what did I say? Empire. 3 is Return of the Jedi. 4, I put Rogue One. 5, I put A New Hope. 6, I put The Last Jedi. Okay, what's left? I've got 2, 1, 9, 7. I did that kind of backwards. 1, 2, 7, 9. And that's the episodes and Solo. That should be right. Yep. Okay. I'm going to go with The Phantom Menace. Episode 1. There's a lot of bad moments in this movie. Jar Jar is... I did like him as a kid. He was very good as a kid. But... So I can appreciate why he was in there. And... I don't think it was an entirely bad decision that they put him in there. But... this is my opinions now. Jar Jar brings the movie down a lot. And I think even worse than Jar Jar is Anakin as a kid. If they had made, and this is a lot of times with things that are made for kids, is I think if the kids were just a little bit older, if they were in their teenage years rather than kids, and this is like for, like I'm doing now, The Phantom Menace, or the other thing I think about this a lot with is Avatar The Last Airbender. If they were just a little bit older, and they could keep their personalities, but just make them a little bit older, and then it would make more sense. Because, I mean, a 10-year-old saving the world is... I don't know. Maybe it's because I wasn't a very good 10-year-old, but I just think it would make more sense if he was a little bit older. And of course, there's the age difference between him and Padme, and how he sees her and is like, "Oh, are you an angel?" Like, it's so awkward. Like, everyone is like, "Oh, it's awkward in in episode 2," but it's worse in episode 1, even though they didn't focus on it as much, which is why I put episode 1 higher. But it's worse in episode 1 because he's a 10-year-old talking, or I think is he 10 or 9? I always forget. But he's talking to like a 14-year-old. It's awkward. But other than that, like Duel of the Fates, and not just the lightsaber duel. The lightsaber duel is, of course, the best part of Duel of the Fates, but there's also them sneaking into, not really sneaking, them attacking the Newt Gunray in the palace. There's the Trade Federation, the battle droids versus the Gungans. That battle's pretty good. And Jar Jar has some genuinely funny moments in that, which maybe in a few years I'll be like, oh, those aren't funny, those are for kids. But for now, I think Jar Jar's actually pretty good in that battle. And that battle is still cool, even with some of the things he does. But then there's the space battle, which, again, Anakin is a bit childish, but oh well. And I mean, the other pilots, we don't know them that well. Technically, he didn't really accomplish much. Like, he didn't stop the Trade Federation. And he blew up an entire ship with his starfighter. But I guess that part is cool too, a little bit. But the lightsaber duel is also really good. Maul is just a really good character. I'm, as much as I hate that they brought him back after he got literally sliced in half. I love that they brought him back because he's just so good in the Clone Wars and Rebels. I don't know. I have conflicted feelings about that. Because, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. How would he survive? But then, he's so good. He's got such good character development. He's so moving to watch. And Sam Witwer's performance is just so good. So yeah, episode 1 is number 7. For all those reasons. I'm going to put... it's either 2 or 7. Or actually Solo. I'm going to go with 2. Maybe not. No, never mind. I'm going with 7. Or Solo. This is hard to decide. Okay, let's talk about them, and then I'll decide. So, episode 7 it's a lot like episode 4. There are a lot of similarities that you can point to. That's not necessarily a bad thing. The problem with that is that those similarities aren't just like theme and equivalence and like it's okay, here's the biggest problem with it that I have. And this is more a problem with the sequels than just with 7, but 7 is what sets it up. The sequels are the story of a ragtag group of rebellious resistors, the Resistance, fighting off the evil empire known as the First Order. That's the original trilogy, again. What about Rey's story? It's the story of Rey defeating Kylo Ren and Sidious. Kylo Ren turns to the light at the end. That's just Luke taking on Vader and Palpatine. It didn't justify its own existence. So, episode 6 ended. And in order to make sequels, you need to have a very good reason why that's not the end of the story, and episode 9 should instead be the end of the story. And episode 7 just reset the sequels back to episode 4. In Starkiller Base is such a bad idea. Like, I don't like the second Death Star. Oh, that's something I should mention for episode 6. I don't like the second Death Star. They shouldn't have built another one. I don't like the second Death Star, but Starkiller Base is even worse because it's a third one. Like, okay, the first one, I get why they did it. It's actually kind of cool. The second one, it's like, okay, I don't think, why would you expect that to work? But I guess you thought it would work. The third one is like, you've seen 2 examples of giant super weapons get taken down before they're like, not before, but like basically before they've been operational for a month. And you build another one? What is wrong with you? So, Starkiller Base, not that cool. Gets blown up anyways. Like, if it had stayed around, that might be interesting. Because we've never seen one of those stay around. And that would also help to explain why in The Last Jedi, no one wants to join Leia anymore. Or join the Resistance. Yeah, so then there's also Rey. She had one of the best introductions of ever, I guess. Like, with very little dialogue, with really good music. Good job, John Williams. Rey's soundtrack is actually one of your best, in my opinion. It explains what Rey does, who she is, and what she wants. Like, it doesn't explain everything, but she's a scavenger. She kind of wants some adventure. She's, does it explain that she's waiting for her parents? I don't think so. But you get to see who she is with that introduction. Kylo Ren's introduction, also very good. His interaction with, blanking on the name, the the guy who gave Poe the map. I'm blanking on his name. Tell me in the chat. But that guy, his conversation with him was a great way to explain what his character is, like what he's like, all that kind of stuff. It explains who his parents are, which is important for him. It explains that he's evil. You get to see him stop a blaster bolt, which everyone obsesses over. I mean, maybe it means he's powerful, but we've never seen it. We don't know if it's very difficult. He doesn't seem to find it difficult. But it does show that the Force has grown since episode 7. Or, excuse me, episode 6. So, yeah, 7 is... There's a lot of things I don't like, but at the same time, there's a lot of things I do like. Oh, Finn was comic relief. This is something... I should have mentioned this in episode 8, even more than this one. Finn is an ex-stormtrooper. I don't understand why they chose to make him comic relief. Honestly, I don't know who I would replace it with. But, okay, maybe he's like that in The Last Jedi if he's not injured and it's not right after. But, and they did some of this, but he shouldn't be super awkward and super funny. He should be kind of, well, maybe awkward. But he should be more serious. He shouldn't cheer when he blows up stormtroopers. I mean, I really like that they made him afraid. I wouldn't have thought of that. That's a really good addition. But yeah, I mean, they could have done so much with him, but they made him a janitor instead. So I guess. Like, how is he helping Kylo Ren? How is he in that squad of stormtroopers on Jakku if he's just a janitor for Starkiller Base? Like, what? There might be a comic about him. They should make a book, because I actually read the books, but I don't read the comics. I'm planning to. I might read the comics this summer when I've got more free time. But I don't know. I haven't read much comics. Never have. But anyways, yeah. Episode 7, I should write that down, is number 8. My 8th favorite. Okay, I'm going to go with Solo next. Solo wasn't really necessary. No one was wondering who is Han Solo, because we got a great introduction in episode 4. Like, he shoots Greedo. That's a great introduction. And he's got a good character arc. But Solo was really enjoyable. As great as Harrison Ford is, who was it? Alan or something? The guy who played Han Solo in the Solo movie did really good. He's not Harrison Ford, but he doesn't have to be. He's a young version of Han Solo. Lando was great. I liked Beckett. Beckett was pretty cool. Much like how I was saying Mando was teaching the bounty hunter in episode 5, Beckett was teaching Solo. The smuggling was really good. Like, when I think of smuggling, I think of, like, getting through the blockade and stuff. But that kind of smuggling, like, basically getting hired to steal something and bringing it to the person, that's pretty interesting. Like, I would always prefer bounty hunting. It's just more interesting to me, more combat related, and I find combat very interesting, as you can tell from Star Wars Duels, which, by the way, if you're watching this stream, maybe on the rebroadcast, or even now, check out obviously if you're watching it, check out it after the video, but check out my playlist of Star Wars Duels. I'd love to talk Star Wars about that. Yeah. I lost my train of thought. Right, Solo. Great movie. very fun. Not the best, not really that necessary, but it had some great moments. And also, um, John Powell did a great job on the soundtrack. Like, I should mention this for literally every Star Wars movie, but John Powell isn't John Williams. Like, is he gonna be good or not? There's some question there. With John Williams, you're like, oh, of course it's gonna be good, because of course every single time has been good. But John Powell also did great, um, which I expected him to do. He did How to Train Your Dragon, which is, in my opinion, one of the best soundtracks for a movie. Whoever did Rogue One is also really good. I'm pretty sure he had like a ridiculously low, like small amount of time to compose stuff, but he still did really, really good. Both those have great soundtracks, as do, of course, the rest of the movies. Mandalorian has a great soundtrack. Clone Wars and Rebels also have great ones. Like, Star Wars has been really lucky with its composers. Yeah, so Solo is number, what is it, 9? It should be 9. So I've got 9 and 2. I'm going to go with 2 next. So, episode 2, you've got the romance part. And this is why I have it so low. Because, honestly, Leia and Han, they've got, according to pretty much everyone, they've got like the best romance scenes in Star Wars. But even that, I'm like, I don't really care. That's kind of boring to me. But then you have Anakin and Padme, and it's like, it's not boring. It's just, like, I don't want to watch it. It's not even like, I'd rather watch something else. It's, I don't want to watch it at all. So that brings it down a lot, especially because they focus on it a lot. Although it does have one of my favorite things that people say about the Jedi philosophy in Star Wars, and that's when Anakin is like twisting the Jedi philosophy to saying we're encouraged to love through the word compassion, which of course does mean a type of love, but it's not the kind of love that Anakin is referring to. For example, in Greek, there's several kinds of love, but compassion, at least how I see it, would be like agape, which is you love everyone, you're selfless. You would give up something for yourself because you love everyone. You have compassion. And it's not like everyone at once, but like if you can help someone, you would help them. You have compassion on them. And then there's eros, which is like passionate love, and that's like the kind of love Anakin wants, which of course is forbidden for the Jedi because it blinds you. It leads to the dark side. It leads to fear, anger, hate, and ultimately suffering, which of course Anakin demonstrated very well. So all you gray Jedi people, fight me because Anakin's the example of why you're wrong. Don't literally fight me, as fun as that would be. But leave something in the chat if you disagree. Leave it in the comments if you disagree. I would love to talk Star Wars with you. If you haven't checked out my video about balance, please do so. Gets views. Also a great video. Not a great video. Has some great ideas. So, and I don't want to be arrogant. If you're right and you think you're right, convince me. I will be convinced. I used to think that, because I was a big fan of Revan, so I used to think that balance meant, like equal light and equal dark, but I was convinced. You can convince me that, I mean, if there's an argument for it that I haven't heard of, that equal light and dark is balance. One thing though is, I don't, like, if it's like, if you're gonna say, oh, it's balance because you're like balancing the two, that's what balance means. That's like a metaphor. Balance could mean a lot of different things. If you're like balance, like light and dark, like day and night, it's equal. Like that's what balance is. Again, that's those are the kinds of things that I don't like. If you're like, oh, George Lucas has said, even if that was true, it wouldn't convince me. Just because he didn't make it in the movies. If you don't make it in the movies, it's not canon. Or, of course, the TV shows and stuff. So, convince me. Tell me why I'm wrong. But balance is the light side. So, what was I talking about? Episode 2. Right. Anakin and Padme, not so good. Although, Obi-Wan in this movie has some great lines. So, of course, the part I'm thinking about is Anakin and Padme go out onto the arena, Petronaki Arena with the Geonosians, and Anakin's like, we came to rescue you, Master. And Obi-Wan's like, he like glances up at his chains, good job. It's such a great line. So Obi-Wan. And then later they're talking about what they're going to do when the monsters attack, and Anakin's like, what do we do? And Obi-Wan's like try and dodge and stuff and whatever. I don't remember what he says. But then Anakin's like, well, what about Padme? And Obi-Wan's like, she seems to be on top of things. And of course, Padme unlocked herself and used the chain to climb up to the top of the pillar. So, great moments. Obi-Wan versus Jango, great fight. That moment when Obi-Wan realizes he just kicked Jango over the ledge, but he's tied to Jango. Great moment. I don't like how he catches himself with that tiny little wire. That would like slice his hands off if he can hang on to it, which I highly doubt he would. But I guess he's a Jedi or something. That's my only explanation for that. The asteroid belt, seismic charges, those things sound so cool. It's that little silence before that makes it sound extra awesome. Yeah, just very entertaining movie despite some parts. You've got the Battle of Petronaki Arena with all those Jedi. You got all those droids. Excuse me. You've got of course, what comes before that with Anakin fighting the Reek, Obi-Wan fighting the Acklay, and Padme fighting the Nexu is also cool, I guess. Yeah, just a great battle there. And then Yoda, okay. The lightsaber duel at the end is not that good, in my opinion at least. So it starts out great. Anakin rushes forward, gets blasted by electricity. Awesome. So we see Anakin is getting punished for his lack of foresight, for his lack of teamwork also. And of course that connects back in Revenge of the Sith with another great line, this time we will do it together. And Anakin is like, I was about to say the same thing. Which makes me wish that they didn't have Obi-Wan and Anakin battling Dooku all the time in Clone Wars. But, oh well, those fights are cool there too. Especially that fight on the, what is it? Obadiah, I think? Whatever the Pike planet is, the Pike Syndicate. That duel with the Dooku, so cool. One of my favorite duels. Yeah, just the way Dooku moves around, and that is very cool to see. He even has a few grappling moves. But anyways, back to episode 2. So then Obi-Wan, or Count Dooku takes out Obi-Wan. As he does. He's got Form 2. Super fun to watch. Super interesting. It's a very unique style at the time. Of course, it would make more sense to study a form that doesn't have lightsaber to lightsaber combat. Because, I mean, who are the Jedi gonna fight that has a lightsaber? In Master and Apprentice, Obi-Wan is actually literally confused by the idea of battling someone else with a lightsaber for real. Just because the Sith are gone, who's he gonna fight? The Jedi? He wouldn't fight a Jedi. And he's literally confused by the idea. Yeah, so Dooku starting that form, very unique for the time. And some people have studied it as like a support for their main style, but Dooku delved fully into that. Don't know why. Then Anakin battles him again. Has some cool dual bladed. That's pretty cool to see. But one thing I don't like about dual bladed fighting in movies and stuff is whenever a Jedi and this applies to pretty much everything, a swordsman gets two blades and they start doing way better, yet they don't usually carry around two. It's like, why? If you're so much better with two, just use two every time. So, and I mean, he didn't do that much better. But then after Anakin slices the, like, wire thing, the giant cable, and the lights go out, it just goes downhill from there. Well, it goes uphill a little bit, but oh well. It's a metaphor. It's not perfect. Yeah, like, you basically just see the lightsabers flashing by their face, and it's choreography, like fight scenes. I very much like wider shots so you can see what's going on. Like whenever they do close-ups in a fight scene, it's like, well, now you can't see what's going on. Like sure, it's fine if you have like a brief pause in the fight and you show up to see like what they're thinking, like you can see like their expression and stuff much better, but if they're in the middle of combat, you don't want to go really close because then you can't see what they're doing. It's very confusing. So yeah, you see just the blue and red flashes around their faces, kind of boring. But then of course eventually, Anakin like throws out his hand, hold it there for a second so that Count Dooku can slice it off. And then Count Dooku force pushes them into a corner. Yeah, that's the Anakin versus Dooku. The first one is kind of sad. Then there's Anakin was like, if not better than Kenobi, at least about as good, which he is the chosen one, but Obi-Wan should be better than that. He's the master after all. Yeah, so then Yoda shows up. They've got a force duel, which I wish they had gone to an effort to show that Yoda could win. Like, he was just toying with Dooku, but he's willing to pull out his lightsaber, even if Dooku could, because Dooku isn't that powerful. Yoda should be as good of a dueler as Dooku, but his force powers should be far better. But I guess in that instance, Dooku did pretty good, or Yoda did pretty bad. Probably both. Yoda did probably just pull out his lightsaber just because he was fine with that too. But then we get to the battle, and Yoda is flipping around like crazy. This might not make sense, except for the fact that Yoda is small. He can't reach. Therefore, he has to jump. He does make some weird sound effects, but I mean, it's a pretty cool thing to see. Seeing the unique style of basically fencing that Dooku has, and the unique style of like flipping around like all over like Yoda has. Super interesting fight. And then of course Dooku drops the giant pillar on Anakin and Obi-Wan, and Yoda stops to catch it. Great plan by Dooku. Yeah, not much more I can say on it. I talked for a long time about that fight. Wow. It's a good fight. Not the best. Now we get to talk about episode 9. Maybe I should actually save that for another episode or another stream. If you're watching, how long have I been going? An hour and 11 minutes. Yeah, I'm gonna just say covered 9 briefly. There's a lot of things that happen in it that don't make any sense. Sidious coming back was a mistake. Like, I see basically no good thing that came from Sidious coming back that you couldn't have achieved with, like, either Snoke surviving, which would it make sense? I don't know. It would make just as much sense as Sidious surviving. Actually more, because Snoke clearly lived, like, it would make sense if Snoke lived longer than Sidious by hiding and surviving. So if he survived, it would make sense. Also, he was testing Kylo, meaning, he was testing Kylo, meaning that there was always a chance that Kylo would make a mistake, at least according to what he would say. So it would make more sense for him to come back than for Sidious to come back. Even if they didn't want to do that, Kylo being the villain would have made even more sense. And actually, that was one thing I liked about The Last Jedi, is that they killed Snoke, meaning Kylo could be the villain, but then they ruined it by bringing Palpatine back. So, yeah, Palpatine comes back. I hate that. And also there's some thematic things with that. I'll get into that some other time. What else happens? Rey continues to be extremely powerful. Yeah, I don't like it at all. It didn't, it's a hard task to do to, finish off that trilogy. But, I mean, I would judge anything harshly there. But that's not going to change my verdict. Like, I still don't like it, even if there's a reason I didn't like it. What else about it? There are some good things. One more bad thing. Palpatine, when he gets his powers back, he shoots so much electricity. It's ridiculous. It's to the point of it being comedic. Like, how did this not, how was this thought of as an idea? I don't even know. What are some good things? Let's see. Oh, that Luke scene with Rey. Rey, like, going to Ahch-To, not that cool. But that Luke scene where he talks to Rey, explains The Last Jedi, at least to me, because I didn't get it. Or I did a little bit, but I didn't really get it. So he explains The Last Jedi, explains basically what a Jedi is to Rey, and that her mistakes are not the end, that she should learn from them instead of fear them. Then you have him lifting the X-Wing. Again, that's just a great moment for him, because everyone knows in The Empire Strikes Back he failed, but now he can, even as a Force ghost. There's the whole Rey rise scene with all those Jedi coming back. Yeah, that was just the worst idea ever. Those Jedi, most of them aren't Force ghosts. Having Force ghosts would have been far superior. Everyone agrees about that, pretty much. I don't know why they went with voices and included voices that shouldn't be possible. If you really love The Rise of Skywalker, I'd love to chat in the comments or in the chat. Just leave a chat, leave a comment. Yeah. Not my favorite Star Wars movie. There's a lot of fake out deaths too. But anyways, let's move on from that. Actually, let me quick run through it. Episode 3, best one right now. Just a very emotional movie with a lot of changes, showing Palpatine's brilliance, Anakin's flaws, Obi-Wan and Yoda, both great in that movie. Then there's episode 5, just all around good movie. Lots of just really good moments. The duel between Vader and Luke. Then there's episode 6, Return of the Jedi. It had some things like the Tatooine plan. I don't know what Luke was thinking. Second Death Star. I don't know what Sidious was thinking, but everything else very good. Best ending in Star Wars. Then there's Rogue One. Just a very good movie. Decent characters. Lots of funny moments. They had great humor in that. Very impactful. Then there's Episode 4. Of course, the thing that started it all. Just a well-rounded movie. Good 3-story act. Good explanation of what Star Wars is and good introduction to the universe. Like all these other movies, they capture the Star Wars spirit. Episode 4 is the Star Wars spirit. Episode 8, good movie, has a lot of big flaws, but it also has a lot of great moments. Episode 1, same thing as The Last Jedi, but slightly more childish. 7, kind of the opposite of The Last Jedi. It's just like very similar to Episode 4. Didn't take much risks. And then, of course, it kind of just set up the sequels to be a repeat. Episode, that's not 5, that's Solo. Solo is just a good movie. It had a few things that don't really make much sense. Like, everything we know about Solo happened in, like, a week. We didn't really need the Solo movie, but it's a good movie. Had some good humor. Episode 2, the romance brings it down a lot. Count Dooku versus Anakin, not that good. Everything else with that finale, though, very good. Well done movie. Episode 9, I don't like it that much. It's my least favorite one, but it's a Star Wars movie. I like it still. Yeah, the Rey and Ben, Ben's turn surprised me. I was one of the people that didn't want it to happen. I didn't feel super strongly about it because it's all more about the execution than the, well, maybe not. It could have been done if executed well, which of course they did. Execute it very well. They expanded on things in The Last Jedi that were good, and they just expanded on things in The Last Jedi that were okay. Yeah. But awesome. I love the Star Wars movies. Those are the ones I love most and the ones I love least. Tell me what you think. Rank the Star Wars movies in the chat or in the comments. Yeah. Let's move on to the next part, which is Darth Maul. So, Darth Maul in season 7 is so in a comic, I've like watched YouTube videos about this comic explaining what it was. So he escapes Sidious through his Mandalorians, gets tracked down, Maul is like the one loose end that Sidious can't clean up. Yeah, so basically, Maul's position in season 7 at the beginning of it is he's in charge of a crime syndicate and in charge of Mandalore. He is in a position where he knows Palpatine's plan is about to unfold. It's about to become a reality, but he doesn't quite know what it is. So he gets this vision to where he's like, oh, Anakin is going to be Sidious's next apprentice. I should kill him. He's also thinking Kenobi is like not very nice to me. I should kill him. So he sets up this trap for Anakin and Obi-Wan to have them show up, and instead he gets Ahsoka. During his fight with Ahsoka makes a comment. She's like, what's the specific line? You're lucky Anakin didn't show up. You wouldn't have lasted long. And of course, that has led some people to believe that like it's ridiculous for Maul to try and kill Anakin and Obi-Wan. Like, how could he even think that? He wouldn't be able to beat Anakin, let alone Anakin and Obi-Wan. So, what was his plan, actually? So, let's go through the what actually happened, so we can try and figure this out. So, the 501st and the Death Watch, I'm just going to combine those two and say that's the Republic forces. And then the other Mandalorians are going to be Maul's Mandalorians. So, Mandalore gets attacked. Maul's Mandalorians are attacked by the Republic. They fly in with their gunships, come down, take over the city. Maul probably was like, oh, we can't hold them off. And he didn't want to anyways, because he wanted to lure the Jedi, whoever the general was, into the sewers. So he lures the Jedi, which is Ahsoka in the real timeline, into the sewers. There he confronts them, along with, and I counted this once, before this episode, or the stream. I think it was 13, it was over a dozen Mandalorians. So him and a dozen Mandalorians take on the Jedi. There was enough Mandalorians to where all the clones that Ahsoka brought with were killed in about 5 seconds, if I remember correctly. I would need to rewatch it. But basically, it's an ambush. Once there, he's like, oh, you're not the one I'm expecting. So I'm going to change plans. And this is why, if Anakin and Obi-Wan hadn't shown up, he wouldn't have fought them in the throne room. He would have fought them there with like a dozen Mandalorians. So basically, this is what would have happened. Anakin and Obi-Wan drop down into the sewers with all their clones, and then suddenly, like, 8 Mandalorians show up surrounding them, take out all their clones, and Maul walks out. Has Anakin fought? I don't think Anakin has interacted with Maul. So Kenobi's like, Maul. And Anakin's like, Anakin would probably say something arrogant, because, I mean, it's Anakin, and he's pretty confident. And Maul's like, wow, so this is my plan, and you're gonna die, and blah, blah, blah. I'm the bad guy. And, of course, Anakin would probably attack first, but Maul would probably try and separate Anakin and Obi-Wan. Because when I'm remembering more accurately. So, Ahsoka and the clones showed up, and they chased the Mandalorians down through the sewers, and they got split up and killed. That would have happened with Anakin and Obi-Wan. The clones get split up and killed. Anakin and Obi-Wan might get separated. That's probably Maul's plan. They get separated, and then all the Mandalorians take on Anakin, while Maul gets his match with Kenobi. And the reason I say this is because here's why Maul wants Anakin dead. Just to spite his master. Like, that's all we want. He doesn't really have an attachment to Anakin. He has an attachment to Sidious, who has an attachment to Anakin. So he doesn't care how Anakin dies. He just cares that Anakin dies. However, he has an attachment to Kenobi. Kenobi is the one who cut him in half. He's the one who stripped him of his potential. So he, of course, wants to deal with Kenobi himself because he's got his anger towards Kenobi is his own. It's not like he cares about him in a negative way, if that makes sense. So he would try and kill Kenobi, which I'm not sure he could do, but that's not the point. The point is he would take on Kenobi. So his plan is actually a pretty good one, or at least it was. Then we get to his plan with Ahsoka. He captures a clone and takes his memories, and from that comes up with a new strategy. He's going to try and turn Ahsoka. Um, the reason he believes he can do this is because Ahsoka was cast out of the Order. Sure, fair enough. However, the problem with his strategy is that he is trying to he's trying to take out Anakin and Obi-Wan. Those are people he should know Ahsoka is attached to, because he doesn't know who Ahsoka is, but he got I think it was Jesse to basically he probed his mind and learned all about Ahsoka, so he should know that there's no way she would turn. But I mean, it's a decent plan. So that's what I believe Maul's plan was. Kill Anakin with the Mandalorians, kill Obi-Wan himself. His new plan, once Ahsoka showed up, was to convert her to the dark side. And after that, I don't know what he would do. He would probably just be like, he probably didn't think past that. He was probably thinking, with her help, I can achieve more, basically. A very non-Sith thing to do. But it served his own goals, so at the same time, it is also a Sith thing to do. So what do you think Maul's plan is? Tell me in the chat. Tell me in the comments. That's it. I need to get better at streaming. Yeah, tell me all about it. What's Maul's plan? So this next part. This is probably the most important part of the stream. So every stream, pretty much, I'm going to do this thing called the question. Here, let me go over here. There we go. I'm going to do this thing called the question of the stream. And if you've got any better suggestions for what I should name it, please tell me, because question of the stream is really boring. Yeah, so question of the stream, and basically what it's going to be is I'm going to have a question, and usually I'll say this before, like, at the beginning of the stream. That way, you'll have lots of time. And basically, the first person to tell me to answer the question gets 10 points. That's 10 full points. Just one question. So, and I mean, they're kind of hard questions. But you'll be able to figure it out. And you can comment this too. It doesn't have to be answered live. It's just, of course, if you're live, you'll be able to do it faster. Only one person gets the 10 points. Maybe I'll eventually be like, oh, you can get 1 point if you answer it second. But 10 points for every time you answer the question. And the question for this one is, who is Kanan Jarrus' Jedi Master? And this would be, of course, before Order 66, who was his master. Yeah. So, if you know the answer, say it in the comments or the chat if you're watching live. I don't really have much more to say about that. Just, again, 10 points on the line here. You could get 10 points. That's 10 points. Yeah, just who is Kanan Jarrus' Jedi Master? 10 easy points. There you go. Maybe if I had more people showing up to these streams, it'd be difficult to get 10 points. But for now, you're going to get 10 points basically for free. If you can, yeah, if you can, don't answer this if you looked it up. You have to, like, know it from somewhere else. Like, don't just be like, oh, that's the question. Let me look it up real quick. There's not really any way I can police that. So if you do, I guess whatever. But for now, just try to be honorable. Don't look it up. Maybe I'll allow looking it up if I had like 1,000 people watching, because at that point, if you're gonna look it up, you're not gonna be that first one. But because I mean, it's 10 points. Like, that'd be like looking up and winning like a laptop. Like, like it when you're supposed to know it from memory. It's like cheating on a quiz for school. Like it's just not the thing to do. So just know it from memory because it's worth 10 points. If I was just letting you look it up, it'd be like maybe a point. But this is 10 points. So definitely answer. You get your 10 points. Very worth it. Let's just go into the outro. So I love talking Star Wars, as you guys probably know from these streams. So if you've got any questions, any things you liked about the stream, or anything you think I can do better, if you've got suggestions for what I should do, if you've got suggestions for what I should do in my videos, if you think that Grey Jedi are super cool, if you think that The Rise of Skywalker is super cool, if you think The Revenge of the Sith is just the worst movie ever, just disagree with me in the comments. If you're like, oh yeah, Revenge of the Sith is so cool, just tell me why in the comments. Just best movie ever. Literally. If you think, I don't know, Solo is the best, tell me that too. I would love to talk Star Wars. I don't know. What color would your lightsaber be? Like, what color would you want, and what color do you think you would have? What's your favorite starship? I don't really care. Just I love talking. Well, I do care, but there's a lot of things I care about. Like I wouldn't want to discuss, I don't know what my favorite color of Wookiee hair is, cause like black, of course. Who's gonna say brown? But white would be actually pretty cool though. A white Wookiee. Anyways, but like, if you're like, well, we should discuss that the talking bantha in the Mando trailer, like, or favorite bounty hunters, or coolest lightsaber powers or most effective. Did I say lightsaber powers? Force powers. Sorry, like most effective force powers. Just I'd love to chat with you. So leave a comment, leave a chat. Thanks for watching. May the force